my passion for doing it originally came from just wanting to be comfortable in a room and finding, for the first time in my life, really, in my late teens and early 20s, that there was something I could do where I didn't feel self-conscious about who I was and where I'd come from, because that wasn't important. What it was this thing in front of you that you were examining. And it was a great relief for me. Well, I just did it. That's the thing. I didn't have any desire to do it, and I hadn't aspired to it. I just did it, and in the doing of it, I thought, this is bloody great. You know, every day to go, I had somewhere to go at night instead of thinking, where am I going to go and get smashed today? You know, I went into a little room with a bunch of people that had a really intense relationship with each other. You had the kinds of conversations that would take you 6 months stranded in the desert to have, you know, and you got to sleep with people, which was a big deal, you know. But mostly, I got to do the kinds of things that actually I think all adults will benefit from. You know, it's enormously releasing to lead this extreme life, emotional life, and to examine human behaviour that closely. And you know, the secret of acting that we shouldn't really tell anyone is it's not that hard, but it is really good fun and engaging, overwhelming. So I did it, and I did it some more, and that's my nature. You know, if one biscuit is good, why don't you eat the whole packet? I just acted my arse off. As many places as I could, and I produced them, and I directed them, and I went to the Edinburgh Festival every year. And I was studying law, I wasn't studying acting. But it was just what I did. That was what I did in my, I mean, I did a lot of other, you know, stupid student things as well, but that was the thing that defined me. I was the guy that did plays, and I liked that. Now, the very first play I did was called Idle Hands, in which I had to run around in my undies and get covered in chicken blood. And swear a lot. And the only reason I was in it is I was staggering around the Union building, drunk. I mean, really badly drunk. It was like the second week of college. And there was a sign up saying, auditions, if you can do a northern accent. And the one thing I could do, I didn't feel like I could do anything else at Bristol. I couldn't fit in with these people. I found the study of law quite overwhelming at first. And everybody seemed to be very comfortable living away from home and having bank accounts, all these things that I hadn't done. I felt very immature. But I could do a northern accent because that's where I come from. And then I did a play called Glory of Love, in which I was a rent boy, and I was trussed up naked in bondage gear and castrated with a cheese wire. Typical student. I went to the Edinburgh Festival, and the very first night we were there, that was my first summer at college, I went to the Edinburgh Festival, and there were 3 people in the audience. There were 5 of us in the play, so it didn't really seem worth going on, but it was a good practice. And we went on and we did the play, and you know, when we'd done it at Bristol, people gagged, threw up at the end. It's pretty disgusting to see someone, you think they're being castrated, you know. And the reviews come out at midnight. In those days, there were only 2 newspapers that counted. One was The Scotsman, came out at midnight, and the review came out at midnight, and they said, this is the worst piece of self-indulgent student shite. Ignore it, you know. You're better off staying at home watching your plants wilt. And we all went up onto Arthur's Seat, which is the mountain over Edinburgh, and drank bottles of tequila and consoled ourselves. We came down at 5 o'clock in the morning, and there was another review in the Evening News, which came out in the morning, perversely, and it said, this is the best play Edinburgh has had on in 20 years. Electrifying theatre, pulls no punches. I remember the review. Go and see me, said very nice things about me. And it was a very early lesson not to take any notice what other people think of your work. We put both reviews up on the poster and said these reviewers were there at the same show, and we sold out. Actually, I had this chip on my shoulder about anything that had been written a year previously. I hated things I thought were classical. People, because I ran the Drama Society after a while, and people brought, you know, Tennessee Williams or whatever, or Ibsen, Chekhov, to me, and I was part of the committee that decided what to put on, but in fact it was me because I was a dictator. And I would always say no to anything that didn't have swearing and nudity in it. And because I was terrified of it, really. I had no cultural education in that world, and I read these things and I didn't get them. I did Bent, which is only a couple of years old. And I did all the Berkhoff plays, because they are also kind of obscene and grotesque. And it's only subsequently I realised all the things I missed out on. It was very easy to feel invisible, inconsequential and anonymous, and I suddenly had an identity. I was that bloke in those plays. And it didn't make me feel, you know, a lot of these people, I was around some very rich young people. They had country houses. I went back to someone's house once, they had servants. I said, thank you, and they all laughed at me. And I really felt just out of my depth. And And then suddenly there was a thing that made me me and not this rather gauche guy from North London. Well, I was very difficult, I think, as a student actor. And I'm probably still quite difficult, some people would think. And I experienced myself as causing trouble or conflict in the rehearsal room often. And only when I've come across directors and writer-directors who are very talented and very confident, does what used to be difficult turn into something else, which is suddenly I feel like a worthy collaborator. Yeah, I mean, I'd left a trail of damaged egos and you know, echoing silences around rehearsal rooms, but I'm a bit blinkered when I get into a situation. I've been like that in life forever, and certainly I'm like that when it comes to work. See something and understand something a certain way, I'm persuadable, but someone needs to persuade me to do something other than what I've got my mind set on. When we were at drama school, we found out that they had access to a whole bunch of television studios that they weren't letting us use, and they had them for free because we were ILEA funded, which is the old Inner London Educational Authority, which Margaret Thatcher disbanded. But when it was around, the school was funded by them, and they had these television studios, and we were furious, the student population, that we couldn't go and learn what film acting was, because we knew that's really how you had to make a living as an actor. You can't make it on stage. So the other year representative and I, who I subsequently married, so it's probably a good thing, we went to the, we asked for a special meeting, I think, of the teachers and the governors, whatever, and we marched in there, adamant, and slammed some folder down on the table. We demand to be trained to use cameras. We need to learn about marks and lenses, and things like that. And they just looked rather patronising at us, and the head of the year, George Hall, went, "Darling, it's all just truth." And we were, I was incandescent with rage. But actually now, having done lots of films and lots of television and lots of stage work, so I think he's right. I think that to allow technique to get in the way, certainly in the early years, of the process of learning to explore human behaviour would have been a real mistake.